The child's claimed the red dust of Kepler 442 be swirled around the small boots of 8-year-old Maya Chun as she stood in the doorway of the colony administration building. Her dark hair was pulled back in two neat braids, but her usually bright eyes were filled with tears and determination. She had been coming here every day for 3 weeks, ever since her father disappeared during what should have been a routine geological survey of the northern mining sector. "My father is under the ground," Maya said again, her small voice carrying across the busy reception area. "He didn't go away. He's trapped down there and he needs help." Sarah Mitchell, the colony administrator, looked up from her holographic display with barely concealed irritation. This was the 15th time the child had made this claim, and frankly, it was becoming disruptive to daily operations. New Eden Colony on Kepler, 442, B was struggling enough without having to deal with a grieving child's fantasies. "Maya, sweetheart," Sarah said, her voice taking on that patronizing tone adults used when they thought they were being kind. "We've been through this. Your father's transport beacon was tracked heading toward the Outer Rim territories. He probably got a better job offer with one of the deep space mining corporations. Adults sometimes make difficult choices." Maya's small hands clenched into fists. "No, father would never leave without telling me. He promised we would explore the crystal caves together when I turn 9. He's under the ground in the old tunnels. I can feel it." The other adults in the room exchanged meaningful glances. Dr. James Chun had indeed vanished without explanation, but his personal effects were gone, and his geological survey equipment was missing. The logical conclusion was that he had simply decided to seek better opportunities elsewhere. It happened all the time in frontier colonies. People came and went like the wind. What they didn't know was that Maya possessed something that many adults had lost, the ability to trust her instincts completely. While the grown-ups analyzed data and made logical assumptions, Maya simply knew her father was in trouble. She had felt at the moment he failed to return home that evening 3 weeks ago, a cold certainty that settled in her stomach like a stone. Commander Thex of the Crothery Peacekeeping Forces observed the scene from the corner of the administration building. The 7-foot-tall alien cut an imposing figure with his metallic blue skin and 4 arms, each ending in hands that could crush human bones without effort. His species had been assigned to maintain order in this sector of human space, though most Crothery considered the duty beneath them. Humans were emotional, illogical creatures who made decisions based on feelings rather than facts. The Crothery prided themselves on being purely rational beings. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's, their military discipline was absolute, and their ability to assess situations without emotional interference made them excellent peacekeepers. They had little patience for human irrationality, especially from their young. "The human child continues to disrupt colony operations," Commander Thex noted to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vex, speaking in their native clicking language. "Perhaps we should remove her to prevent further inefficiency." Lieutenant Vex's 4 yellow eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of agreement. "The colony administrator has requested intervention twice this week. Shall I arrange for the child to be relocated to the youth facility?" But something about Maya's unwavering determination gave Commander Thex pause. In his 40 years of peacekeeping, he had learned to recognize the difference between emotional outbursts and genuine conviction. This small human child showed none of the typical signs of grief-induced fantasy. Her posture was firm, her voice steady despite the tears, and most intriguingly, she never altered her story. Delusional humans typically embellish their tales over time, but Maya's account remained consistent. Mrs. Elena Rodriguez, Maya's teacher at the colony school, entered the administration building at that moment. She was an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair, one of the original colonists who had helped establish New Eden 25 years earlier. She had taught 3 generations of children and had developed an almost supernatural ability to distinguish between imagination and truth. "Sarah," Mrs. Rodriguez said firmly, approaching the administrator's desk, "you need to listen to this child. I've been teaching children for 40 years, and Maya Chun is not making this up. Sarah Mitchell sighed heavily. Elena, I understand you care about your students, but we can't launch expensive search operations based on a child's fantasies. We've already spent considerable resources looking for Dr. Chun. The search teams found no trace of him in the mining tunnels. Did they search the old tunnels? Maya interrupted, her voice rising with frustration. The ones from before the colony expanded? Father showed me the maps. There are passages that go deeper than the new mines. Much deeper. Commander Theck stepped forward, his heavy footsteps causing the floor to vibrate slightly. When he spoke, his voice was translated through a mechanical device that gave his words a metallic edge. Young human, you claim your progenitor is located in subterranean passages. What evidence supports this assertion? Maya looked up at the towering alien without fear, something that surprised even Commander Thex. Most human children were intimidated by Crothery presence, but this one met his gaze directly. I don't have evidence, Maya said. Simply, I just know. The same way I know when it's going to rain before the weather sensors show it, or the way I knew Mrs. Patterson was sick before she even felt the symptoms. Some things you just feel inside. The Crothery commander's forearms crossed in front of his chest, a gesture of skepticism in his culture. Emotional intuition is not considered reliable data among civilized species. Decisions must be based on observable facts and logical analysis. But Mrs. Rodriguez stepped closer to the towering alien. Despite barely reaching his chest, she looked up at him without intimidation. Commander Thex, in all your years of peacekeeping, haven't you ever encountered situations where logic alone wasn't sufficient? Haven't you ever had to trust something beyond pure data? Commander Thex considered this question carefully. His species prided themselves on rational thought, but if he was completely honest, there had been moments in his career when instinct had guided him to solutions that pure logic had missed. Still, acting on the unsubstantiated claims of a human child seemed highly irregular. Even if we were to investigate, he said, finally, the old mining tunnels were sealed after the expansion project 5 years ago. They were deemed structurally unsafe and potentially hazardous. Maya's eyes lit up with hope for the first time in weeks. But if they're sealed and Father disappeared near the northern sector, maybe something happened when he was surveying near the old entrances. Maybe there was an accident, or maybe someone trapped him down there. Sarah Mitchell was growing increasingly frustrated with the conversation. This is ridiculous. We have real problems to deal with in this colony. The harvest is behind schedule, we're dealing with equipment failures in the water processing plant, and now we're wasting time on a child's imagination. But Commander Thex found himself intrigued despite his better judgment. The child's logic was surprisingly sound. If Dr. Chun had been conducting geological surveys near the old tunnel systems, and if those systems had been improperly sealed, there could indeed have been an accident. The search teams had focused on the active mining areas and the surface regions, but they had not investigated the abandoned sections. Lieutenant Vex, Commander Thex said in his native language, access the colony's geological survey records for Dr. James Chun. Specifically, his planned route for the day he disappeared. Lieutenant Vex 4, arms, moved quickly over a portable data interface. After a few moments, his yellow eyes blinked rapidly in surprise. Commander, according to the official records, Dr. Chun was assigned to survey the northern perimeter, but his personal research notes indicate he was particularly interested in the geological stability of the old tunnel network. He had submitted 3 requests to the colony administration for permission to inspect the sealed sections. Sarah Mitchell's face paled slightly. Those requests were denied for safety reasons. The old tunnels are unstable and filled with toxic gases from the early mining operations. Maya stepped forward again, her small chin raised defiantly. Then why didn't anyone tell me that Father wanted to go down there? Why didn't anyone mention that he was worried about the old tunnels? The uncomfortable silence that followed her question spoke volumes. Commander Thex realized that the colony administration had been less than thorough in their initial investigation. They had made assumptions based on convenience rather than conducting a proper search. Mrs. Mitchell, Commander Thex said, his mechanical voice carrying a note of authority that made several people in the room step back. It appears that relevant information was not shared during the initial investigation. This constitutes negligence in the handling of a missing person case. Sarah Mitchell's hands trembled slightly as she pulled up additional files on her holographic display. The requests were buried in routine paperwork. Dr. Chen submitted dozens of research proposals. We couldn't approve them all, especially ones that involved dangerous areas. But Maya wasn't finished. She walked directly up to Commander Thex, craning her neck to look up at his imposing figure. Commander, if Father is down there and he's hurt, every day we wait makes it worse. Please, you have equipment that can check if the tunnels are safe. You have soldiers who are trained for rescue operations. I'm just asking you to look. The simple honesty in her voice cut through all the bureaucratic complications and logical objections. Commander Thex found himself in an unusual position. His species valued efficiency and rational decision-making, but they also had a strong code of honor that included protecting those who could not protect themselves. Very well, he said, finally, I will authorize a limited investigation of the sealed tunnel network. However, if we find no evidence of Dr. Chen's presence, this matter will be considered closed. Maya's face broke into the first genuine smile anyone had seen from her in 3 weeks. Thank you, Commander. Thank you so much. As the Crothery commander began organizing the search operation, he couldn't help but reflect on the strange turn of events. A small human child had challenged his assumptions and pushed him to take action based on nothing more than intuition and determination. It went against everything his species valued, yet something about her unwavering certainty made him believe that perhaps human emotion wasn't always a weakness. The real test would come when they descended into the dangerous tunnels beneath New Eden Colony. If Maya was wrong, it would be a costly exercise in human sentiment. But if she was right, it would prove that sometimes the most advanced technology and logical analysis couldn't replace the simple power of a child's love for her father. The underground discovery the entrance to the old mining tunnels looked like a wound in the red earth of Kepler 442b. What had once been a carefully engineered access point was now sealed with industrial foam and warning markers. Their bright orange color faded after 5 years of exposure to the planet's harsh sun. Commander Thex stood before the sealed entrance with his team of 4 Crothery soldiers, each equipped with advanced scanning equipment and environmental suits designed to handle the most dangerous conditions. Maya Chin stood beside them, looking impossibly small next to the armored aliens, but her presence had been non-negotiable. She had insisted that she needed to guide them to where she believed her father was trapped, and despite his better judgment, Commander Thex had agreed. The child wore a specially modified environmental suit, the smallest one the colony could provide, and her voice came through the communication system with crystal clarity. Father's geological notes mentioned that the old tunnels connect to natural cave systems, Maya said, studying a handheld map display. He thought there might be valuable mineral deposits deeper underground in places the original miners never explored. Lieutenant Vex ran his 4 hands over a sophisticated scanning device that could detect life signs through several meters of solid rock. Commander, I'm detecting faint atmospheric movement beyond the seal. The tunnel system may not be as closed off as the colony records indicate. The cutting tools made quick work of the industrial foam seal, revealing a dark passageway that descended into the planet's depths. The air that emerged was stale and carried a metallic tang that made even the Crothery soldiers' advanced filters work harder. But there was something else, something that Maya's human senses detected before the alien technology registered it. Do you smell that? Maya asked, her voice tight with excitement and fear. That's Father's field coffee. He always brews it too strong, and Mom always complains about it. Commander Thex's scanning equipment showed no chemical signatures that matched human food products, but he had learned not to dismiss human sensory capabilities entirely. Their noses were primitive compared to Crothery chemical analyzers, But sometimes they detected things that their machines missed. The descent into the tunnels was treacherous. The original mining operation had been abandoned, not just because the easily accessible minerals had been exhausted, but because the geological structure was more complex and dangerous than the early colonists had realized. Support beams showed signs of stress, and in several places, sections of the tunnel had partially collapsed. The structural integrity is compromised throughout this section, reported Sergeant Crix, the team's technical specialist. We should retreat and recommend that these tunnels be permanently sealed with high-density barriers. But Maya pressed forward with a determination that amazed the Crothery soldiers. She seemed to navigate the dark passages with an instinctive knowledge of where to go, always choosing the correct path when the tunnel branched in multiple directions. How does the human child know which direction to take? Lieutenant Vex asked in the clicking Crothery language. Our navigation systems show 17 possible routes from this junction. Commander Thex watched Maya carefully as she paused at each intersection, her small head tilted as if listening for something beyond the range of their equipment. She claims to be following her father's scent, but her behavior suggests a more complex navigation method. What the Crothery didn't understand was that Maya was indeed following a trail, but not one that their advanced technology could detect. The bond between human family members created connections that went beyond simple biology. Maya had spent 8 years learning to recognize every aspect of her father's presence, from his voice to his footsteps to the way he moved through spaces. Those subtle traces were guiding her now. Through the maze of abandoned tunnels 0.2 hours into their descent, they reached a section where the original mining operation had intersected with natural cave formations. The passages here were wider and showed signs of recent geological activity. Loose rocks and disturbed sediment indicated that something had happened in this area within the past few weeks. Commander, Sergeant Crix reported, his voice tight with concern. I'm detecting elevated levels of toxic gases in this section. Hydrogen sulfide and methane concentrations are approaching dangerous levels. Maya's environmental suit began beeping warning alerts, but she pressed forward despite the hazards. He's close, she said with absolute certainty. Father's close. I can feel it. Then they heard it, a faint tapping sound, rhythmic and deliberate, coming from somewhere deeper in the cave system. Commander Thex's 4 hands quickly adjusted his audio enhancement equipment, filtering out the ambient noise of their own movement and the planet's geological activity. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. That's Morse code, Maya said excitedly. Father taught it to me as a game. He's signaling SOS. The Crothery soldiers looked at each other in surprise. Their advanced communication systems had missed the pattern, but the human child had immediately recognized her father's call for help. Commander Thex felt a growing respect for human resourcefulness. Following the sound led them through a narrow passage that opened into a larger chamber where the original miners had excavated a significant cavity. And there, behind a wall of fallen rocks and twisted support beams, they found Dr. James Chun. The man was alive, but clearly weakened by 3 weeks of confinement. He had managed to create a small survival shelter using emergency supplies from his geological survey kit, and he had been tapping on a metal pipe that ran through the rock fall, hoping someone would eventually hear his distress signal. Maya? Dr. Chen's voice was hoarse with disbelief as the rescue team's lights illuminated the chamber. Maya, is that really you? Father. The child's cry echoed through the cavern as she scrambled over the loose rocks, ignoring the potential danger. I told them you were under the ground. I told them you didn't leave. The reunion between father and daughter brought an unexpected emotional response from the Crothery soldiers. Their species didn't form the same intense family bonds that humans did, but witnessing the raw joy and relief of the reunion made them understand something fundamental about human nature. As the team worked to clear the passage and extract Dr. Chen safely, he told them what had really happened. He had indeed been investigating the old tunnel system, but not for personal research. He had discovered evidence that someone was conducting illegal mining operations in the abandoned sections, extracting rare earth elements without proper environmental safeguards or colony oversight. "I found equipment down here that shouldn't exist," Dr. Chun explained as Sergeant Crick's administered medical aid. "Advanced extraction tools, chemical processing units, and evidence of systematic mineral removal. Someone has been using the sealed tunnels as cover for an unauthorized operation." Commander Thex's forearms tensed with anger. Illegal mining operations were a serious violation of galactic mining accords, and they often resulted in environmental disasters that could affect entire planetary ecosystems. "When I tried to document the evidence, the tunnel collapsed," Dr. Chen continued. "I think someone triggered it deliberately to prevent me from reporting what I'd found. They probably assumed the cave-in would be fatal." Maya held her father's hand tightly as the medical scan results appeared on Sergeant Crick's equipment. Despite 3 weeks of captivity with limited food and water, Dr. Chun was in remarkably good condition. His geological training had helped him survive by finding underground water sources and rationing his emergency supplies efficiently. But the most shocking discovery came when Lieutenant Vex's deep scanning equipment detected the full extent of the illegal mining operation. The unauthorized excavation extended far beyond the sealed tunnel system, creating a network of unstable cavities that threatened the structural integrity of the entire northern section of New Eden Colony. "Commander," Lieutenant Vex reported grimly, "the illegal mining has weakened the geological foundation of the colony's water processing plant and 3 residential sectors. If the excavation continues, we could be looking at a catastrophic collapse that would affect thousands of colonists." Dr. Chen nodded weakly. "That's why I was so determined to investigate. The geological surveys showed unusual seismic activity in this region. I suspected someone was conducting unauthorized excavation, but I never imagined the scale was this extensive." As they made their way back through the tunnels, supporting Dr. Chun and carefully navigating the unstable passages, Commander Thex found himself reassessing his opinions about human capabilities. The child's emotional intuition had not only saved her father's life, but had also uncovered a criminal operation that threatened the entire colony. Maya walked beside her father, her small hand never leaving his, chattering excitedly about everything that had happened during his absence. Her joy was infectious, and even the normally stoic Crothery soldiers found themselves smiling behind their environmental masks when they finally emerged from the tunnels into the red sunlight of Kepler 442b. A crowd of colonists had gathered around the entrance. Word of the rescue operation had spread throughout New Eden, and people who had dismissed Maya's claims as childish fantasy now looked at her with newfound respect. Sarah Mitchell was among the crowd, her face pale, with a mixture of relief and growing concern as she realized the implications of what they had discovered underground. Human ingenuity triumphs the colony administration, building buzzed with urgent activity as the full scope of the illegal mining operation became clear. Dr. James Chun, despite his weakened condition, had insisted on reviewing the geological data immediately upon his rescue. His expertise was crucial for understanding the extent of the environmental threat facing New Eden Colony. Maya sat beside her father as he worked, occasionally handing him data tablets or pointing out details on the holographic displays. The 8-year-old had become something of a hero among the colonists, but she seemed most interested in helping her father with his scientific work. Commander Thex stood at the center of the conference room, his 4 arms gesturing as he coordinated multiple investigations simultaneously. The Crothery peacekeeping forces had been transformed from reluctant overseers to active protectors of the colony, and the change was remarkable to witness. The illegal operation extracted over 400 tons of rare earth minerals, Lieutenant Vex reported, his yellow eyes blinking rapidly as he processed data from their underground scans. The extraction methods were crude and dangerous, with no consideration for structural integrity or environmental impact. Sarah Mitchell shifted uncomfortably in her chair. The colony administrator had been notably quiet since the rescue, and her nervous behavior hadn't gone unnoticed by the sharp-eyed Crothery soldiers' doctor. Chen looked up from his geological analysis with grave concern. The damage is worse than we initially thought. The unauthorized excavation has created a network of unstable cavities that extends directly beneath our water processing facility. The entire northern residential sector is at risk of catastrophic subsidence. How long do we have? Commander Thex asked his mechanical translator, giving his voice an edge of urgency. Based on the seismic stress patterns, I'd estimate we have perhaps 2 weeks before the structural collapse becomes inevitable, Dr. Chen replied. But that's assuming no additional excavation takes place. Maya tugged on her father's sleeve. Father, remember what you taught me about underground rivers? Could the illegal miners have hit one of the water sources? Dr. Chen's eyes widened as he considered his daughter's question. He quickly pulled up additional sensor data on his tablet. Maya, you might be onto something. Look at these readings. The geological scans revealed that the illegal mining operation had indeed intersected with one of the planet's underground aquifer systems. The uncontrolled water flow had been gradually undermining the structural supports throughout the tunnel network. This explains the accelerated deterioration, Dr. Chen said with growing excitement. If we can redirect the water flow and reinforce the critical support points, we might be able to stabilize the entire system. Commander Thex tilted his head in that characteristic bird-like gesture. Dr. Chen, are you suggesting that this crisis can be resolved through engineering solutions rather than evacuation? Not just resolved, Dr. Chen replied with the first genuine smile he had shown since his rescue. If we approach this correctly, we could actually improve the colony's infrastructure while preventing the collapse. But their planning was interrupted by an urgent alert from Sergeant Crix, who had been investigating the financial records of the illegal mining operation. Commander, I've identified the source of funding for the unauthorized excavation. The operation was financed through diverted colony development funds. All eyes turned to Sarah Mitchell, whose face had gone completely white. The colony administrator stood slowly, her hands trembling as she realized her carefully constructed deception was crumbling around her. I can explain, she said weakly. The colony was facing bankruptcy. The quarterly reports to the Galactic Colonial Authority were due, and we didn't have the resources to meet our obligations. The rare earth extraction was supposed to be temporary, just enough to cover our financial shortfall. Commander Thex's forearms crossed in front of his chest, a gesture of profound disappointment among his species. You endangered the lives of 3,000 colonists for financial gain. It wasn't supposed to be dangerous. Sarah protested. We hired experienced miners. They assured us the extraction could be completed safely. Maya looked up from her father's tablet with those remarkably perceptive 8-year-old eyes. But you knew Father was getting close to discovering what you were doing. That's why you didn't search for him very hard when he disappeared. You hoped he was really gone. The simple truth delivered by a child struck everyone in the room like a physical blow. Sarah Mitchell had been prepared to let Dr. Chen die rather than risk exposure of her illegal operation, the doctor. Chen placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. My, sweetheart, why don't you go get some juice from the cafeteria while the adults finish this discussion? But Maya shook her head firmly. No, Father. I want to hear this. Mrs. Mitchell made you disappear, and she would have let you die. I need to understand why adults sometimes do terrible things. Commander Thex knelt down to Maya's eye level, his imposing figure somehow managing to appear gentle despite his alien appearance. Young human, your species has a capacity for both great good and great evil. The same emotions that drove you to save your father also drove Mrs. Mitchell to make dangerous choices out of fear. But fear isn't an excuse for hurting people, Maya replied with startling wisdom. Father taught me that being afraid is okay, but you still have to do the right thing. The Crothery commander found himself profoundly moved by the child's moral clarity. In all his years of peacekeeping among various species, he had rarely encountered such pure ethical reasoning. Over the following days, the rescue and repair operation became a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Dr. Chen's geological expertise, combined with Crothery engineering technology, created solutions that neither species could have achieved alone. Maya became an unofficial liaison between the human colonists and the Crothery peacekeepers, her natural curiosity and fearless approach to communication breaking down barriers that had existed for years. She asked the alien soldiers about their homeworld, their families, and their dreams, treating them as individuals rather than imposing authority figures. The water redirection project required precise timing and coordination. Dr. Chen identified key structural points where temporary supports could be installed while permanent reinforcements were constructed. The Crothery soldiers provided advanced materials and equipment that could withstand the planet's harsh conditions, but the most remarkable aspect of the operation was how Maya's simple human insights continued to contribute to their success. When the engineering team struggled with stabilizing a particularly unstable section, Maya suggested using the natural rock formations as anchors rather than fighting against them. Father always says you should work with the planet instead of against it, she explained to Commander Thex. Maybe the rocks want to fall in a certain direction. If we let them do that, but catch them where we want them to go, wouldn't that be easier? The suggestion led to a breakthrough in their stabilization strategy. By allowing controlled collapses in specific areas while channeling the debris into reinforcement positions, they could strengthen the overall structure while using the unstable elements as building materials. 3 weeks after Maya had first insisted that her father was under the ground, New Eden Colony was more secure than it had ever been. The illegal mining cavities had been transformed into an expanded water storage system. The residential areas had been reinforced with advanced Crothery materials, and the colony's financial situation had been resolved through legitimate partnerships with Galactic mining corporations. Sarah Mitchell faced trial for endangering colonists and embezzlement, but even she benefited from the human capacity for forgiveness. Dr. Chen testified that while her actions were inexcusable, her desperation was understandable, and he recommended rehabilitation rather than imprisonment. Commander Thex stood in the colony's central plaza on the day his peacekeeping unit was scheduled to rotate to their next assignment. Maya had organized a farewell celebration, complete with human food and entertainment that introduced the Crothery soldiers to aspects of human culture they had never experienced. Commander Thex, Maya said, presenting him with a small handmade gift, "This is a picture I drew of you and your team rescuing Father. I want you to remember that humans and Crothery can be good friends." The drawing showed the alien soldiers as heroic figures, their imposing forms rendered with childish artistry but genuine affection. Commander Thex felt an unfamiliar emotion as he accepted the gift, something his rational Crothery mind couldn't quite categorize. Young Maya Chun, he said, his mechanical translator somehow conveying warmth despite its artificial nature, you have taught me that logic and emotion are not opposing forces. Sometimes the heart provides data that the mind cannot process. Dr. Chen approached them, his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Commander, I can't thank you enough for listening to Maya when everyone else dismissed her concerns. You saved my life, but more importantly, you validated a child's love for her father. Commander Thex looked down at the human family, struck by the powerful bonds that connected them. His species had always considered human emotions to be weaknesses, but he now understood that they could also be sources of incredible strength. Dr. Chun, your daughter possesses wisdom that transcends species barriers, he replied. The Crothery peacekeeping forces will include this incident in our training protocols. Sometimes the most important intelligence comes from the most unexpected sources. As the Crothery transport prepared for departure, Maya ran up to Commander Thex one final time. Will you visit us again? She asked hopefully. The alien commander knelt down and gently touched her shoulder with one of his forehands. The galaxy is vast, young human, but bonds of friendship can span any distance. Perhaps someday our paths will cross again. As the transport lifted off into the red sky of Kepler 442b, Maya waved until it disappeared among the stars. She had learned important lessons about courage, determination, and the power of never giving up on the people you love. Dr. Chun watched his daughter with pride and amazement. In saving him, Maya had also saved their entire colony and forged friendships that would influence interspecies relations for years to come. Father, Maya said as they walked home together, do you think Commander Thex was right about hearts and minds working together? Dr. Chin smiled and squeezed his daughter's hand. I think, Maya, that you've proven something very important. Sometimes the most advanced technology in the galaxy can't replace the simple power of a child who refuses to give up hope. The story of Maya Chun and her unwavering faith that her father was under the ground became legend throughout the human colonies. It reminded everyone that the greatest human strength wasn't in their technology or their weapons, but in their capacity to love, to hope, and to never abandon those who mattered most. And somewhere among the distant stars, Commander Thex kept Maya's drawing as a reminder that wisdom could come from the most unexpected sources, and that sometimes the smallest humans possessed the biggest hearts in the galaxy.